Iowa Theme Park Podcast number 3 under new management. It's time for the Iowa Theme Park Podcast with your hosts, Nick McMahon and Jack Sailsbury. In this episode, we will discuss Palace Entertainment's purchase of Adventureland Park.
Thank you for tuning in to the Iowa Theme Park Podcast. Today is Tuesday, December 21st, and we've just received news about the Palace Entertainment purchasing Adventureland Park. I'm Nick McMahon.
And I'm Jack Sailsbury, and this is our friend Eden Mullen.
Howdy.
We're here to just discuss kind of our first thoughts, immediate impressions of Palace, and where we think the future is going with Adventureland.
Yeah, so, when I received the news today, it was quite a bit of a shocker, really. The Krantz family has owned Adventureland Park for almost 50 years now. They're coming up on their 50th anniversary, and to learn that they have sold the park, it was very surprising. I'm surprised, but I'm hoping for the best and that good things come out of this.
I was in school, and all of a sudden I got like 800 text messages from Nick and from my sister and my brother and my dad and everybody. And I still don't really believe it because it's just the Krantz family has owned it for so long.
But, I'm hoping that good comes out of this. I believe Palace, they're known to take parks and turn them into something special. And as we know, Adventureland already is special, but I really hope that they choose to continue on with this and grow it, make some good investments in the park, continue what the Krantz family has been doing the last 5 to 6 years, really doubling down their investments in the park and beautifying it, continuing that renaissance that park is currently going through. I'd love to see some additional coasters. I know we're getting 8-9 new rides next year. That's kind of 9 new rides were announced, but 8 is being currently advertised. So
if you look at other parks that Palace has bought, when they bought Lake Compounds, I don't know how many years ago it was. 4 years after they bought the park, they installed Boulder Dash. And then a year after they bought Kennywood, they installed Skyrocket. So they have a history of investing big amounts of money into good rides immediately after investing in a park. This is probably a little bit different because Palace as a whole is under new management. This is the first park that the new management has bought. So it'll be interesting to see how they deal with that.
Yeah, one thing I got to say is I'm kind of hoping that they really continue to invest in employees as well. I know that several times I've talked with employees and they always tell me how well the Krantz family has taken care of them, doing day off events, outings, things like that, engagement things. And, it shows when you go to the park and the employees, they're fun to be around and they always keeping that fun atmosphere that the park is known for. I hope in addition to continuing to take care of the employees that we see some investments that we've wanted for a long time. I know that I'd still love to see the Tornado RMC. I don't see any better way to preserve a 50-year-old signature coaster than upgrading it, bringing it back up and giving it another 50 years of life. I know it's not quite there in that age, but it's getting close. And it would definitely be a fantastic way to revitalize. And I think Palace Entertainment's just the people to make that kind of investment.
Well, we could do a whole nother episode on RMC Tornado. We've got so much on that. But Palace has worked. I think it's interesting to look back and see what companies Palace has worked with in the last few years. SNS is also a real possibility since they've worked, Steel Curtain, but then Adventureland has also worked with SNS. I don't really know how much that plays into it.
Yeah, I can't say on that because Adventureland's worked with quite a variety of manufacturers in the past. You just don't know what the future holds. You can look at trends, but they can surprise us with something new that no other park has. It'd be really cool to see an Axis. We talked about that around when Dragon's Lair was being put in before we really knew what we were getting. It'd be interesting to see too if what they decide to do with some of the aging rides in the park, things like parachutes, some of the older kids rides like the Red Barons. I'd be really interested to see, if they're gonna take those out or continue to maintain them the way they were.
What I find interesting is that they have 8, 9 new rides, all family rides coming in next year, which means Palace now has an open slate of any major new attraction that they don't need to focus on family rides for another few more years. It's a lot more interesting when they have a palette of major attractions that they can add rather than they just need to fix this park first. If Adventureland's already good as it is, Palace can come in and really revitalize what's already good into something better.
Well, and the biggest knock on Palace that I've seen is that they just like completely suck the soul out of parks and remove the family atmosphere. I haven't been to Lake Compounce or Kennywood to see that, but I've heard from people that in the last 3 years since they've been under their new management, that has not been the case at all. The biggest like thing that I see people point to use as an example of that is Kennywood removing Bayern Curve and parachutes and some of their other rides that are older stuff that make the park a classic park. But now they're going back on that. They saw that fans weren't excited about that and didn't like that decision. So they're going back and re-adding Kangaroo. And I just saw they're investing a ton of money this year into making the park feel like a classic park and really going through and renovating stuff to make it seem modern, but also be that like classic boardwalk feel that it's always had.
Yeah, the other thing is I hope to see that they help maintain the fan base. I've said it before. I know that we've discussed this before, Jack, but of all the parks I think I've ever been to, Adventureland seems to have one of the most loyal fan bases in the industry. I'm not to say there's better fan bases out there or bigger fan bases, so to speak, but as somebody who's been kind of running and helping grow our fan page on Facebook, I feel very strongly that interacting with the other fans and things like that, that they're incredibly loyal to the park. And I hope that Palace embraces that and allows that to continue, because that's one of the things that makes the park so special to me.
What I really like about Adventureland, like you said, Nick, the fan base, it's really a general public family park. You go there for the experiences. Yes, there's rides, but there's shows, there's people there that you go there for everybody. It's not just about the rides. And that's something I was really concerned about when they were taken over by a worldwide corporation, is that they could take that away from Adventureland. I've never seen a park in the world that has that kind of aesthetic that Adventureland has. And from what Jack said, Palace does have a reputation of listening to their fan base. So I think that could very much stay. But I do still have a concern that could be one of the things we see leaving in exchange for a bigger budget on, say, rides and attractions.
Would it be worth it? Like, is Adventureland losing all its charm and everything? Is that worth it to get bigger new coasters, to get a hyper coaster, to get RMC Tornado? Because I don't think it is. I would rather have Adventureland feel local and feel like a fun family park and have like low prices, have good food, never than have the big rides.
Oh, I agree 100%. And I think a lot of that ties in again, like we talked about, the employee base being diverse. They pull from, as you may remember listening to episode 1 of the podcast, Mike kind of told us they pull from foreign exchange students, locals, work campers, keep that diverse work culture, because it allows all different ages to work and a very diverse group of people to work for the park, as well as it just keeps the mood happy and helps set the mood, and I really hope that they keep that, because I would totally agree. I don't think that I would rather have Tornado the way it is another 50 years, as much as I don't want to say this, than lose the charm, and the things like, how many parks do concerts every Friday? Right off the top of my head, I can't think of any, but there may be a few that I'm not thinking of that might do something like that. That's really cool. We really had a lot of fun with that last year. Oktoberfest, it's a fantastic event. I hope that they continue Oktoberfest. It brings in some good talent. It's enjoyable for adults like myself to kind of get away and do their own thing at the park. I hope they continue things like that.
Well, and Palace has experience running events in the off season, or not in the off season, but like outside of just the regular operating season. I would expect there to be a like Christmas event in the next few years. I wouldn't be surprised to see a haunt type deal in October, just because all of their other parks have those and are really like well known, especially at Kennywood and Lake Compounds. They have really well known Christmas events and really well known Halloween or Scarefest, whatever. I think that that'll be a big thing at Adventureland.
I think that's a great idea, but my concern with that is Adventureland being where they are, they're in a smaller market than places like Kennywood or even Worlds of Fun, who I believe discontinued their holiday event due to the effects of COVID. But my question is, can they get enough staffing for that? Because I would say half of their workforce or more is work campers. I don't think they're going to be able to convince a work camper to stay in Iowa in December. So, I'm interested, really interested to find out how that's going to play out. I'm all for it. I would love to see additional events to extend the year at the park, but can they do it? That's the question.
Honestly, I do think it is possible, especially as a former employee. Although it is true that most employees of Adventureland are work campers, there is a large percentage of locals. A lot of them are teenage levels, first jobs, and having a job in December, in October, over weekends for events like that is great experience for teenagers to really learn about their jobs and the workforce entirety. But I do think that there is enough people in the area that would be willing to work for events such as that. As long as the events aren't park wide, aren't having all the rides open, all the shops open, you could very much have events like that happen.
Yeah, and kind of tying into that subject, I think one thing I would love to see from this is extended operating hours in the summer.
Yes.
It's been a very, very talked about subject on our fan page. The fan base wants the extended operating hours. You know, who wants to go? I guess one of the biggest complaints is I get a season pass and I get off work at 5 o'clock and the park closes at 6. I remember growing up in the 90s going to the park where the park was consistently open till 9 or 10 o'clock. What happened to that? Why can't that be? I understand that staffing has really been a challenge the last 2 years with COVID, but eventually we're going to get better, and it's getting better than what it was. So I would love to see the operating hours expanded so that we could enjoy those rides at night, because the elements of the park just completely change at night. The park is just so beautiful at night, but when you have those long summer nights, doesn't start getting dark till 9 or 10 o'clock. I'd love to see the park open till 10 o'clock on weekdays.
Especially after their revitalization of a bunch of lighting systems for their rides. And how often do you see Storm Chaser, Monster, and Tornado lit up at night while they're operating?
Exactly.
Those short hours have really taken away from that aspect. And it's a wonderful thing. There's people I've heard come from far out of the state just to see these rides, and they're having to leave at 6 o'clock and not able to see the lighting package that they've heard so much about.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. And I think too that this is going to be kind of a sore subject, but the sky ride, I really hope they keep that sky ride. Adventureland has invested in a new control system for the sky ride in the last couple of years. Parks like Worlds of Fun took their version of that out, and it's just such a nice ride to get on and get some breeze on a hot summer day. Get to the park from one side to the other without having to walk after you've been walking on the park all day. I really hope that that's a ride they continue to keep at the park and they don't take it out.
How rare is it do you see a ride like that go through a roller coaster the way Skyride goes through Monster? I have
It's
never seen anything like that before.
it's truly unique. And I know that when they built Monster, they worked with I think they looked at a couple different manufacturers, and Gerstlauer was that manufacturer that was willing to work with that aspect of the park. And I just I can't say it's the best ride in the park, but it's a close second to Monster. It's
Hmm.
enjoyable. There's just something special about it, and not a lot of parks have them. And so I
And
really
functional.
hope they continue to keep it.
It's not just an experience. You literally go from one end of the park to the other without having to walk, and you get some incredible views while doing so.
Yeah, maybe we
I
can talk
think
them into putting another train station in by the water park.
Outlaw Gulch, please. Everyone I've ever heard has been in complete agreement that that train needs to go to Outlaw Gulch. There's no train I've seen that hasn't gone from one station to another station, except for Adventurelands.
I think that just to kind of summarize it all, Adventureland has a lot to gain from this. They do have a lot to lose, but there is still just so much possibility for growth and investment. And I don't really think that Palace will let it run down or will kind of let it become the Michigan's Adventure of the chain.
Yeah, I think they'd be foolish to let that happen. I truly believe they're gonna do things right with the park. They've got a loyal fan base that wants to continue visiting the park and patronizing the park. There's a possibility of a water park expansion. They have a lot of experience running water parks. There's a good spot for hotel renovations. The hotel has gone through some renovations, but I don't believe it's been completely finished yet. There's a lot that they can do. I do hope they keep the work camper program in place. It's a very unique operation. There's not a lot of parks in the country that have a water park, a theme park, a hotel with a restaurant, and a RV park all attached in one unit. I hope that they continue that and let that continue to operate. There was some look on if you look on the Altoona building permits and city council agenda, it's all public information. There was some information about the possibility of apartments or dormitories being built. You wonder if that's something that's going to be continued or brought on. That you could definitely get some more work camp style or temporary style workers if they're being housed. You could definitely expand your workforce that way too. Any other thoughts?
Well, kind of, you mentioned it, but Palace has a long history of operating water parks. I think they've operated water parks longer than they've operated theme parks. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a large addition to Adventure Bay in the next few years. It makes sense. Over the last 20, 30 years, there's been a pattern of if a major park is expanding, they expand their water park first because people go to the water park. Like that's the biggest moneymaker is the water park. Families go to the water park, old people go to the water park, everybody goes to the water park. But not everybody enjoys the dry park to that extent. So if a park is expanding, they will expand the water park first and then use those funds to expand the dry park. So I think that if we see a water park expansion in the next 5 to 8 years, which I do think we will, that really indicates something big is coming in the next 15 years.
Yeah.
Not to mention, it's a great combat to Lost Island, having a huge water park expansion to combat the water park opening and amusement park expansion.
Well, and on that subject, we don't really know what Lost Island hasn't really released what their plan is for visiting their parks. But one of the things that's unique to Adventureland is one park, one price. You get those people from time to time that say, well, I would rather just pay for admission to the water park only. But the majority of people like myself like that you can get into one park for one price. And we don't know what Adventure or Lost Island's going to do about that. We don't know if they're going to have separate admissions or 2-day passes. That information has yet to be released, but Palace does have an edge if they continue to operate it that way as one park, one admission, or one admission gets you into both parks. And I think they could definitely expand on that and benefit from that.
One thing that Lost Island has impeccable theming to the point that they stole the trade show floor of International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions just a little while ago with their unveiling of their new dark ride with Sally Dark Rides. I think if Palace is taking over Adventureland, they might look into more theming aspects of the park rather than the amusement park kind of general aesthetic of build the ride, there's no theming. I think we could definitely see a more influx of theming.
Yeah, I agree. And I would think that, maybe this could be an opportunity for Palace to, I don't know if historically they've had a history of ever working with Sally rides, but, Sally's like the industry expert in dark rides, could they possibly do a retheme or refurbishment of Underground?
Yes.
Underground's a great ride if you want to get out of the sun for a little bit and cool off, but the lines are usually long and it's usually not a whole lot of excitement with minimal theming happening there. I think they definitely have a chance to make a change there. They could work with, a company like Sally to improve that. If I had my ultimate say so, I'd love to see the Underground replaced with something else. You could definitely fit a nice coaster in that spot, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
I think we got to save our predictions or our wishes for the park for another episode, because I think that we could talk a lot about that.
That's a whole episode within itself. There is a lot of concerns with Palace Entertainment taking over Adventureland, but there's a lot of good things that can come from it. It's more of just what direction Palace wants to take Adventureland. They're going to listen to the fans. They're going to keep doing the renaissance that Adventureland has built for itself. I mean, as a family park, getting the first Gerstlauer Infinity on this side of the planet is very impressive. I think Palace is going to keep building on that. But we will have to see, like you said, Nick, it's a lot of variables and a lot of things we don't know yet. It could be very bad or it could be very good.
Yeah, the whole thing, this really is bittersweet. It's sad to see that this park that's been built by the Krantz family from the ground up be sold, but sometimes there comes a point. I'm sure that the Krantz family would like to. It's all they know. I'm sure they would like to retire and enjoy their lives, and I think it's time to. It's like sending your child off to college. I think it's time to move on and let somebody else take over.
Now that we have all summarized the same thing in our own ways, safely say that I think that Adventureland is in good hands, but only time will tell.
I agree. All right. Well, thank you for joining our podcast episode about Adventureland being purchased by Palace Entertainment. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Iowa Theme Park Enthusiasts. We appreciate your time listening to our podcast today. We are also now on Twitter, and you can find our podcast on Spotify as well.
Thank you for tuning in to the Iowa Theme Park podcast. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and YouTube for updates on future episodes about Iowa theme parks. Comment and let us know what you would like to hear on future episodes.